Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalica and today we're going to be covering some stories of people who thought, screw this, I quit. Was at a job for 3 years, consistently in the top 3 of my department in terms of performance. I asked my supervisor repeatedly if I could be recommended for advancement or promotion, and he always told me that he was trying his best to get me new opportunities. I found out from a friend in a different department that I'd been considered a top candidate for 4 different promotions, and each time my supervisor had blocked it. When I confronted him with this information, he told me it was true, and he did it because I could never find someone who does what you do without paying them a lot more. Internally said, frick this, I quit, and found a new job within 3 months. Took all my paid time off, and on the day I came back, I quit 2 hours into the day, leaving him high and dry at peak time. Frick that dude. I was in the same position for 2 years and was actively looking at other positions within the same company. The bosses knew about it. It was just time for a change and to advance my career. A great opportunity came up and I was offered the position. However, my current leadership blocked me because I received a promotion 6 months prior. That promotion was literally an automatic email that said, congrats, you're now level 2 instead of level 1, because I had met my sales attainment and completed all my yearly trainings. Literally, an automated email stopped me from getting promoted, and bosses said I had to wait another 18 months. I left that company and went to a competitor doing the same thing for better pay and significantly more support. It's sort of like employers forget that there are other jobs out there. I was 20 and had been working in a call centre for just over a year. I was promoted to an assistant manager with a new compensation structure that was identical to the other assistant manager. Basically, you get your wage, a very small percent of the total office revenue, and then 10% of your own revenue from when you worked on the phone. My immediate manager and office supervisor gave me this without confirming it with a regional manager who was on a 2-month vacation in the DR. When I got my first check after being promoted, there was no bonus. I was told it would be corrected soon. When I got my second check after being promoted, there was no bonus, and I was told it would be corrected soon. When I got my third check after being promoted, there was no bonus, and I was told we had to wait for the regional manager to come back and authorize it. I was being paid weekly and worked another 4 weeks under the premise that I would get a lump sum when the regional manager returned. The problem was that I sold significantly more than the other office manager. The back pay had grown to such a large amount that when the regional manager did return, he questioned why the office manager had given me this structure, and he considered it to be too much money. On my next check, there was no lump sum, and I was told that they were figuring out a new structure. My following shift, I stayed home and got a frantic call from the office manager asking me why I wasn't at work. I told him I couldn't afford to go to work. He said, "Why can't you afford it?" "Because I've been getting ripped off for 2 months. Call me back when you have my money or don't call me at all." I'm not sure if I've told this story before on the channel, but I actually worked in an outbound sales call centre when I was about 18, and it's the only job to this day that I've walked out on. So I hated the cold calling people, and I was trying to sell them like phone contracts or iPads and using manipulative tactics to try and force rapport with absolute strangers. Like, it was stupid things like, "Oh, is that a cat I hear in the background? Oh, what's their name?" Or, "Where are you from?" Or it was just really scummy and I hated doing it. But I was 18 at the time and I was trying to put myself through school, and I didn't have any work experience. Yeah, so it wasn't great. However, what tipped me over the edge was ringing a woman whose father had just died. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm calling from this company, but don't worry about it, I'll take you off our call list and I'm incredibly sorry for your loss. Then about 5 minutes later, my manager pulls me over and told me that he listened to that call and he was disappointed in me for not even trying. I said, okay, walked back to my desk, told my manager I was going on lunch, and left through the front door. No thank you, not doing that. Wow. I worked for a company for over a year that was contracted to make deliveries for Amazon. The vans they equipped us with were terribly maintained and fully unequipped to handle winter weather. I worked with the company through their first winter, which meant sliding all over the road when it was icy and getting stuck constantly every time we had snow. I never had a major accident, though I did have 2 or 3 close calls where only minor damage was incurred to the van. I decided to stick it out through the summer, when the weather was obviously much better. All summer long they promised us that new and better vans were coming. September rolls around, no vans. October, no vans. November, no vans. That month we got our first real snow. I got back from my route and immediately put in my notice. My boss told me they'd be getting new vans by the end of the year. I told her that was nice, and walked. Ooh, my wife has one. Her boss suddenly became obsessed with bringing in as many new people as possible. Oddly, he seemed to forget about retaining his current workers. Many, like my wife, were very experienced at this point. You would think that they'd be considered the most valuable employees of the group. My wife had settled into a nice Monday to Friday schedule with good hours, 10 to 5. Suddenly, her boss pulls her in for a meeting and says, "Most of the new employees can't work nights or weekends due to personal conflicts. I'll need you to switch to a 1 to 9 schedule and work Saturdays." My wife was caught off guard and responded, "When you hired me, I told you that I had conflicts in the evenings and weekends and that I would be able to work within that schedule." The boss got all serious and said, "Listen, I think I've been more than generous and accommodating of your schedule needs. I think it's time for you to show us some of that same flexibility." My wife started crying immediately and stormed back to her desk. She called me and said that she thought she needed to quit, but wanted to make sure she wasn't crazy. After listening to what happened, I said that boss could go to hell and she could never look back. She took her free water bottle and never returned. Waitressing at a small cafe, owner was also the manager and cook. One day we were in the weeds, getting thrown around left and right, and finally when it slows down, the other line cook messed up. So the owner, who already had several screaming meltdowns, picks up a plate and throws it right at the server alley. It broke on the wall near my head. So I took off my apron and waddled my pregnant ass on home. Frick that. It closed a few weeks ago, which wasn't surprising. Worked at a big box office store. On my first week I got held up by a train and was 5 minutes late. By the time I had gotten there, the manager had blown up my phone with 15 calls. But since it was winter and I had a big wool coat on plus a sweatshirt, I didn't feel my phone go off. I got a lecture when I walked in, and all morning he kept looking at me like I'd killed his pet. About 2 hours later, I got called into the office for a write-up. I went in and was very calm about the whole thing. He kept saying I should show some remorse. I told him if 5 minutes was getting me a write-up and a lecture, plus being told I obviously don't care since I'm not remorseful enough, he could keep the job. I used to work at Dollar General. I was about 5 months pregnant at the time and had a lot of tailbone pain. I normally worked freight because even though I was pregnant, I was still the most efficient at it. At some point my manager had gotten into a serious car accident and couldn't return to work for a few months. This basically promoted our assistant manager to manager. Dollar General does inventory once a year for each store and it's pretty much hell. The only good part about it is that you don't get a truck that week, so there's no freight to put up. The bad part about it is you get a huge truck the next week. So we get through inventory and the next week we get a huge truck as expected. I ended up having a scheduling conflict due to an appointment and wasn't able to come in during the day on a Thursday to put up the freight, but could come in that night or another day. So instead of the assistant manager letting me do that, she just took me off the schedule completely and didn't replace me with anyone. All while we have the biggest truck of the year. It was pretty obvious she was doing it to be petty, so I called the manager bawling my eyes out because it wasn't the first time something like this had happened. You know who got yelled at? I did. I was 5 months pregnant. Putting up freight, even though I was in a lot of pain doing it, was the hardest worker there, and the assistant manager was being petty. So I was fed up, clocked out for lunch that same day, and never went back. Bonus story. 2 of the people I worked with were robbed at gunpoint right before closing and quit on the spot. A couple of months later, the manager had a gun put to his head during another robbery, but he stayed. There was a video on the news and everything. Wow. Okay, so that's all for some screw this I quit posts. I really hope you did enjoy them. As always, if you do want to see more videos like this, then please do subscribe. Any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!